Hello, this is Vlad and a new story from my channel, Amazing Story. Tanya, what are you standing there for? A shout from the nurse on duty brought her back to reality. She winced and looked at the bucket, quickly wrung out the rag, and continued cleaning the endless third-floor corridor. Her arms ached, her back ached. A month of working with a nurse hadn't accustomed her body to heavy physical labor. Two young nurses, Lena and Oksana, walked past. They chatted animatedly, ignoring Tatiana. But then, that was always the case. To the hospital staff, she was just the one in the mask. No one knew her story. Tanya deliberately wore a surgical mask. Underneath it, scars and burn marks were hidden. The left side was the worst affected. Jagged reddish scars ran from the temple to the chin. "Finish up already," the nurse called out again. "Today you also have to clean the morgue." "Good," Tatiana answered quietly, without looking up. The morgue. She tried not to think about that place, even though she cleaned there twice a week. Every time she entered the cold room with its rows of metal boxes, she felt something inside her tighten. A year ago, though, her life had been completely different. She ran a small printing company. The business had been inherited from her parents, who had decided to retire and move to a small house by the sea. She managed, although she felt no particular passion for it. She always believed that life should be brighter, richer, more interesting. And then one day, at a business dinner, she met Artyom. Tall, stately, with regular features and a captivating smile. He instantly captured everyone's attention. Artyom was confident, charismatic, and spoke in a way that made you want to listen for hours. "Tatiana, you're simply amazing," he said at the end of the evening. "It's rare to find someone with such an inner light." She laughed, not believing the compliment, but Artyom continued to insist on meetings. A month later, they were officially a couple. 3 months later, they were married. Her parents were wary of the marriage. "Darling, you haven't really gotten to know him yet," her mother said. "Maybe we should wait and get to know him better?" "Mom, I'm already an adult, I know what I'm doing." Quote. But the truth was, Tanya didn't know. She was in love. Artyom surrounded her with attention and care, brought her flowers, arranged romantic dinners, and took her to neighboring towns on weekends. 6 months after the wedding, he offered to sell the printing house. "Tanya, I've found a great project," he said one evening over dinner. "My old friend and partner is building a chain of resort hotels. Everything is thought out to the last detail. Spas, restaurants, excursion programs. So what? He's looking for investors. It's a really profitable investment. It will pay for itself in a couple of years, and then there will be a stable passive income." Tanya frowned. "But I have a business. Why would I need anything else?" "Your business is stagnant. Printing houses don't bring in the kind of money they used to. Everything is going digital, virtual worlds, and here there is real money, development, prospects." "Well, let me think about it." Artyom didn't finish the job, but every day he unobtrusively returned to the topic, talked about the project, showed photos, talked about income. And gradually Tanya began to lean towards his proposal. The partner, whose name was Oleg, called her himself, complimented her. "Artyom talked so much about you, smart, beautiful, a businesswoman. Those are rare these days." But something in his voice was alarming. Oleg was too fussy and too pushy. But most importantly, he kept asking for a share in cash. "I just have some small issues with the tax office," he explained. "A pure formality, but for now I prefer to work with cash." "Well, in a couple of months, when everything is resolved, we'll formalize it." Tanya didn't really believe in such formalities. Quote, "Tem, I don't like all this," she told her husband. "Tanya, I'll vouch for him on my head. Oleg is my friend, we've been together since our student days." Quote, "And why haven't I ever seen him then?" "Will you see him? Let's go see him, you'll meet him, we'll discuss everything." Tanya hesitated for a long time, but Artem, as always, was persistent. In the end, she agreed. They left on Friday evening. Oleg rented a house in the forest. They decided to stop on the way and spend a couple of days there. It was so romantic. The house turned out to be secluded. There was only forest around. The nearest village was about 10 kilometers away. Wooden furniture, a fireplace, soft blankets. Artyom lit a fire, opened a glass of wine. They ate dinner, talked, and then went to bed. Tanya woke up suffocated, and the first thing she noticed was the acrid smoke. It clogged her lungs and stung her eyes. She coughed and tried to get up, but the room was already filled with smoke. Quote, "Artyom!" she screamed, but no one was nearby. Panic instantly overwhelmed her. Tanya jumped out of bed and crouched lower. The air was cleaner there, near the floor. The fire had already engulfed part of the wall. Flames greedily licked the wood paneling. Quote, "Artyom!" she screamed again. Again, there was no answer. The door to the hallway was hot. She wrapped a blanket around her hand and pulled the handle. The hallway was ablaze. The exit was cut off. Window. She could get out through the window. She grabbed a chair and smashed the glass. The shards landed in her palms. But she felt no pain, climbed outside, and fell onto the wet grass. Behind her, the house roared like a living thing. Quote, "Artyom!" she screamed one last time, and again no one answered. Flames lashed at the windows. The fire howled and crackled. Tatiana tried to get closer, but the heat pushed her back. Only when the firefighters arrived did she realize the left side of her face was on fire. The next days were a blur. The hospital, the doctors, the kindness of the investigators. Artyom was found. His body was badly burned. The cause of the fire was quickly determined. A faulty electric heater, meaning an accident. The case was closed. Her parents tried to take her home, but Tanya refused. She couldn't explain why. She simply didn't want to go anywhere. She stayed in the city, in a large house, among luxury cars, expensive furniture, and bitter memories. For the first 2 weeks, she barely got out of bed. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Artyom, blaming herself for not being able to save him. She survived, but he didn't. Then a decision came: work. She needed a job. Any job, hard, exhausting, anything to take her mind off things, anything to forget. She got a job as a nurse at the city hospital. She simply showed up and said she was ready for any position. A month passed. She gradually got used to the smells of bleach and medication, the endless corridors and the nurses' indifference. But not to everything. Lena and Oksana appeared in the corridors like a pair of bright butterflies, always together, always smiling. They were young, beautiful, and perfectly aware of it. Their laughter echoed across the floors, and their conversations revolved around one thing: men, outfits, parties. For the first few weeks, they didn't notice Tatiana, but then they did. Quote, "Listen, what's under that mask?" Oksana asked one day, stopping next to her. "A pimple, or something?" Tanya continued scrubbing the floor, pretending not to hear. "Or maybe she's just paranoid." Lena giggled. "Afraid of germs." Tatiana clutched the rag tightly. She wanted to turn around, punch them, and tell them everything she thought, but she remained silent. Over time, the bullying became more sophisticated. Quote, "Tanya, my floors are better," Lena shouted, deliberately stepping on the freshly washed ones with her dirty boots, and they both laughed as they walked down the hallway. The only person who treated her like a human being was the young therapist, Alexei. Tall, thin, with attentive brown eyes, he often stopped next to her when she was scrubbing the floors or wiping the windows. Quote, "Tanya, you should see a specialist," he said. "Burns need to be treated properly. Scars can be made less noticeable." "Thank you, but no thanks," she replied, turning away. "Why?" "Modern medicine works wonders. Plastic surgery, laser resurfacing. I don't care how I look." Andrei fell silent, but Tanya felt his gaze on her. There was no pity in it, rather genuine concern. Another 2 weeks passed. Tanya was transferred to an extra shift at the morgue. They needed cleaning there. It was in the hospital basement. Every time Tanya went down the stairs, she felt a chill penetrate her bones, not from the temperature, but from the atmosphere. The first time, she cleaned quickly, trying not to look at the metal boxes. The second time, somehow more calmly, but by the third, she had almost gotten used to it. That day, Tatiana was mopping the floor, as usual. The rag slid across the tiles, the bucket stood against the wall. Suddenly, the morgue door opened, and 2 orderlies entered with a gurney. Quote, "Another one," one of them muttered. "Looks like he's been shot, a bullet in the chest." They rolled the body over to an empty crate, moved it, slammed the door, and left. Tanya was alone again. She continued washing the floor, but her heart suddenly started beating faster. Something inside screamed, "Come, look." "But this is stupid. Why?" Her legs carried her to the box. Tanya froze in front of the metal door. Her hand was shaking when she finally pulled the handle. The box slid out with a quiet creak. A man lay on the gurney. His face was pale, his lips blue. His clothes were shabby and dirty. But his features, Tanya covered her mouth with her hand to keep from screaming. Artyom, it was Artyom. She recognized him immediately, despite his pallor, despite the fact that he looked thin and exhausted. This was her husband. Her legs gave way on their own. Tatiana grabbed the edge of the gurney, trying not to fall. 1,000 thoughts flashed through her head. How? Why? After all, his body was found in the house. He was buried a long time ago. Or not. Tatiana jumped out of the morgue, forgetting about the wind and the rag, got up. She ran down the stairs and out into the street. The cold air hit her face, but she didn't feel it. She took out her phone and, with trembling fingers, dialed the number of the investigator who was handling the fire case. "Hello, this is Tatiana Belova. I need to meet with you urgently." "What happened?" "My husband, he's alive. I mean, he was alive recently. His body is in the morgue at the city hospital." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." The next days turned into a nightmare. The investigator arrived, examined the body, took samples for examination. DNA confirmed. It was indeed Artyom Belov. The case was reopened. An investigation began. This time, it was murder. Tanya testified again and again. She talked about the trip, about the fire, about finding the body in the morgue, and about her suspicious partner. Oleg was found a week later. He was hiding in a neighboring region, in a small town. They detained him at the entrance. A random check. They checked the databases, and then there was a wanted list. Interrogation. It took a long time. At first, Oleg denied it, but when he was presented with the evidence, he broke down. The plan was simple. Lure her into the house, start a fire, stage Artyom's death, and plant the body of a homeless man in the fire. Oleg had found a suitable candidate in advance and taken the money. They were carrying the entire amount in cash. But Artyom disappeared and didn't contact Oleg. He waited a week, 2, and then realized his partner had simply screwed him, took the money for himself, and disappeared. The hunt began. Oleg searched for Artyom for 2 months. He found him in a neighboring town. He was renting an apartment, living quietly, not in contact with anyone. Oleg came to him, and they had an argument. He fired, and Artyom died on the spot. The bullet hit him right in the heart. When the investigation was completed, Tatiana couldn't come to her senses for a long time. Everything she had believed in for the past year collapsed in an instant. Artyom, not a loving husband, but a con man. Their marriage is a complete mess, a deception. All the pain, guilt, and suffering because of the man who used her. She cried at night, sitting in a huge empty house, then got angry, then cried again, but one morning she woke up and realized, enough self-pity, enough hiding, and enough wearing a mask, literally and figuratively. 3 months passed. Treatments, ointments, laser resurfacing. All this required patience. The scars gradually faded, became less noticeable. Her skin smoothed out before our eyes. Meanwhile, something was brewing at the hospital. Have you heard? Oksana gasped, bursting into the staff room. The head doctor is turning 60. The banquet will be in a restaurant, can you imagine? Lena jumped up. Seriously? Oh, finally a normal party. I need to buy a new dress. Oksana was already planning to go to the beautician. The whole staff will be there. No, not all of them, Lena chuckled. A scary guy like our Tanya, definitely not. They have their own corporate party down the hill. They wanted it, not even suspecting that Tanya was standing outside the door with a bucket in her hands. She heard every word. But the strange thing is, instead of resentment or pain, something else appeared inside. A cold calm. Let him laugh. Let him. The anniversary day arrived quickly. The restaurant where the banquet was being held was located in the very center of the city. Tatiana drove up in an expensive SUV and got out of the car in a luxurious dress, with an exquisite hairstyle without a mask. The scars were not noticeable, she was conscious of the makeup she'd applied. Her face was calm, beautiful, confident. And then she noticed them, Lena and Oksana. They were standing on the restaurant's porch, chatting about something. Both in full dress. At some point, Oksana turned around, and their gazes met. The nurse's eyes widened. She nudged Lena in the side, pointing towards Tatiana. She saw their frozen faces but just walked past. Andrei was hurrying towards her. He put his arm around her waist, and they went inside. The next day, rumors started circulating in the hospital. Have you heard? It turns out that Tanyuka used to run a whole chain of printing houses. Lena and Oksana were gloomy all day. Tanya had quit the hospital. She rented a small space on the outskirts of town, 3 rooms, high ceilings, large windows, and renovated it herself. She painted the walls, arranged the furniture, hung the frames. It was her studio, a drawing studio. For children. The idea came unexpectedly. One evening, Tanya was sitting at home, drawing, just for herself, watercolors, the sea, a sunset. And suddenly she realized that this was what she had always loved, drawing, creativity, what she had given up for the sake of the printing house, for the sake of business, for the sake of other people's expectations. She looked at the bright children's drawings on the walls of the studio, listened to the children's laughter during classes, and felt peace finally coming inside. Andrei often stopped by after work, brought coffee, and sat silently next to her while she prepared materials for the next lesson. And when one day he took her hand and said, "You know, I fell in love with you back then in the hospital," Tanya smiled truly for the first time in a long time. Life went on, but now it was her own life, honest, without falsehood. And just 6 months later, she and Andre got married. And a year later, she became the mother of 2 little ones. If you like the story, please support me with the thumbs up button. For you, it's just one simple action, but for me, it's extremely important. Thanks in advance and all the best. M.